Okay. Good morning, or I guess I should say good afternoon, and welcome back to the Caregiver Coalition of Northeast Florida's virtual caregiver conference, How Full is Your Cup? My name is Candace Christensen, and I am the coordinator for the Caregiver Coalition. So if you were here for one or both of the sessions that we have had in this conference thus far, welcome back, and we appreciate you sticking around. And if you're just tuning in, we're on our third session so far of the conference, and this whole session is going to be dedicated to talking about creativity and self-expression as a form of self-care. So quickly before we get into it, I want to share a short message from a couple of our sponsors.
How's everybody doing?
Hey guys!
Hi!
It's time to lean on each other.
All of you guys, so much great support.
And laugh with each other.
Cheers!
Let's do it together with caregiving chats and more. Come find us at aarp.org/near you.
My wife, I call her a drill sergeant. She gave me the inspiration to build myself up. I need to go on dialysis. Florida Blues, they gave my wife good information, what I ate, how she cooked, and everything. In fact, if I go to the store and buy something today, she'll get it and read it and say, you can't have this. And that's why I think I'm where I'm at today.
So we have a few generous sponsors, and just on behalf of the Caregiver Coalition, I want to express my gratitude to our 2021 gold sponsors, Florida Blue, Baptist Agewell Center for Senior Health, and Community Hospice and Palliative Care, as well as our renewing silver sponsor, AARP. So thank you so much for giving us a space to do what we can do.
How's everybody?
A few more quick housekeeping items. As with the other sessions, this session is being recorded, and we're going to be posting it to our website and our YouTube channel. So if you miss anything, don't worry, I'll be sending out the recording sometime next week so that you can catch up. And if you could leave your microphones and your cameras off, just so it's a little less distracting. If you have any questions, you can use the chat box for Q&A, and there'll be some discussion throughout the workshop. And so if you could pull the chat up, we can use that to create a dialogue. And then at the end of the session, I'm going to be pulling up a quick poll. And this is where you can let us know what you liked and what you didn't like, and we can make these workshops the best that they can be. And then lastly, in case we run into some technical difficulties, I suggest please be patient. We're going to try and resolve them as quickly as possible. So without further ado, I want to introduce Hope McMath. We're really excited to have you here, Hope. She's the founder of Yellow House, which is an organization that has a mission to connect art and community in order to build understanding, inspire empathy, and spark civic engagement. Hope's been a part of the art community in Jacksonville for a long time and has spent 22 years with the Cumry Museum, 8 of which she was executive director. Right now, she currently curates exhibitions at the Holocaust Memorial Gallery, the Jewish Family and Community Services, as well as facilitating the Humanities in Medicine program at Mayo Clinic. And she also works to build community through art. So thank you so much for being here, Hope. We're really excited to have you.
I'm super excited to be here with all of you. Really, it's a beautiful thing to be sharing space, even if it is just virtual space with all of you on this beautiful Friday. And, you know, I have to say a lot of the work that I've done around art and community actually first started about over 20 years ago in doing caring for the caregiver work through a relationship that I have had for many years with Mayo Clinic and some other medical facilities. Not only doing that for those who we often give the title of professional caregiver, like physicians and nurses, but more often than not, those of us who do caregiving as part of our sort of daily lives in caring for spouses, for parents, for children, for friends, for partners. So I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you. And, you know, for the next 45 minutes or so, I'm hoping that this time that we're going to have together is a gift for all of us. First of all, it is, I'm giving you full permission to relax into your own body, to welcome play into this space, to tap into your own creativity, because we are going to actually be doing some making together as we go through this time. So this is full permission for you to spend time on yourself, to do something creative, and to honor exactly where you are right now, sitting in this virtual space together. You know, as an art person, I believe that one of the most powerful things that either making art or taking in art can do for us is it puts us into our current moment, right? It sort of requires us to pause and be fully present. It's sometimes, sure, it references the past, or it may make us think about something in the future, but it is really about the here and now. So as we get ready to get started, I'm going to be using the chat box with you all quite a bit. So make sure you know how to get to your chat box so that you can add comments into it, because we're going to have this sort of all a bit of a conversation all along the way. And as was mentioned on the intro slide, you are going to need for today, for this next hour, a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a piece of computer paper off your printer. It could be an envelope that you have sitting around next to you. It could be a scrap piece of paper. It doesn't matter. I need you to have 1 or 2 pieces of paper near you, and something to write / draw with. That can be a pencil. It can be a Sharpie marker. It can be a highlighter if you're sitting at a desk. It doesn't matter what it is, but something to write with. And if you're in a position that you don't have any of that, don't worry. We're going to have ways for you to still be engaged in what we're doing through the chat box and other means of expression. Okay. So I'm curious how all of you are right in this moment. Some of you have been part of the morning, and some of you are sort of joining us just now. Some of you might be eating lunch as we're doing this. I hope so. Sustenance comes in all forms, both food and art. I happen to believe that they work well together. So for those of you that are able, will you go to the chat box and just give me a word or short phrase on sort of how you are feeling right in this moment, right? Give me a sense of how you're feeling and how you're coming into this space right now. Whether it's in a positive place, an anxious place, it doesn't matter. Just be really honest about where you are right now. Love it. People are excited to be here. People are feeling loved. People are feeling good, curious. Ooh, that's my favorite kind of person, right? It's actually my favorite state of being, is to be curious, grateful. I'm good, ready for the weekend, right? Happy Friday, peace and calm. This is all beautiful. I'm really pleased that so many of you are really in such a good and positive space. And I also want to make sure I hold space for the people that maybe aren't feeling quite that good about the day. I feel like we are in a time of transition these days, right? Especially after an extraordinary year, one that is not over. And we experience transitions in our own individual lives. On a societal level, we're going through a transition. I think about it as moving sort of from dark to light. And that's going to be a bit of a theme for our time together today. So thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. These words about possibility and awakening feel really appropriate for what we're going to be doing together today. So I happen as an artist to believe strongly in, and I've just witnessed it so often, that art is a tool for healing. It gives us a place of respite and rest. It's also a place where we can tap into exactly how we are feeling. It's a place for self-expression. So because of all of that, art is a tool for wellness. So when I talk about art as we go through this together, I'm not talking about art with a big A, right? Art that hangs on walls in museums or what exists on the stage of a symphony hall. And I love all of that. I love all of that. But what I'm talking about is something much more personal and much more intimate. And that's what we're going to explore a bit today, is how do we as individuals, whether we consider ourselves artists or not, how do we tap into the power of art and writing to help us find focus, to tap into our current state of being, to play, to find joy, and to welcome into our worlds the unexpected. So much of what you all do who are in this space, especially as caregivers, follows a certain kind of rhythm and structure often. There are certain things that just have to happen. There are intense expectations that have to be met. You are having to sustain yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit, as well as the mind, body, and spirit of others. And with art, even if we just give a few minutes to it each day, it can really give us space to wander and wonder. Wander with an A and wonder with an O. And I want to be able to sort of show you one way to do that. I know y'all have been talking about self-care activities throughout the morning, and this one is going to focus specifically on art. So I'm going to share my screen for the next couple minutes because I want to show you some images to just sort of inspire and get us all kind of juiced up around this idea. And as I mentioned before, I'm not talking about the big famous artists, though we know artists throughout history have always used art to express the complexities of the human experience. I'm talking about art made by people who don't even consider themselves artists, art that is innate in all of us. And I'm showing you one of the oldest works of art to ever exist in the caves in Lascaux, France. And I promise you, I'm not going to give you an art history lecture. All this is human beings, hundreds of thousands of years ago, making their mark. This idea of making a mark, of doing something artful as an act of connecting to the natural world and to one another, has been around since literally the beginning of mankind. But I also want us to recognize this isn't just something done in the past. It's something that is with us today if we will only tap into it. I'm showing you here a picture of this young boy. This is actually at my space at Yellow House. And we had a family day happening, right? So we had art activities happening throughout the space. And this young boy, instead of drawing with crayons, took the container of crayons, put it down on the floor, and spent about 20 minutes simply emptying all the crayons out of the box in riotous laughter, and then filling back up the box, and then pulling them all back out again, to where there was so much joy happening in this corner. A bunch of people gathered around him to join in this. Now, these aren't even the way crayons are supposed to be used, right? But who says so, right? Just the joy of these colorful objects being in his hands and then on the floor and then back in the box brought this idea of wonder, of discovery, and of pure joy into not only his day, but into our day. And here I'm showing you an image that is, that is from a recent workshop I did at Mayo Clinic. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we do humanities and medicine programming for physicians, doctors, residents, nurses, as well as informal caregivers. And this was for residents. And we wanted to, after this incredible year that they have had of incredible loss and uncertainty and grief and hard work, we wanted to give them some permission just to play. So we went outside where we could be somewhat socially distanced, and we painted without an agenda, without any specific images to be made, but to just find joy in putting paint to paper and sharing that experience with others. And it was incredibly powerful. But we know art also helps us tap into and understand the toughest things happening in our lives, right? Yes, it can bring joy, but it also can help us make sense of a very chaotic world. This is a work of art that was created by a young person, a very young person. And you may recognize the event that this student was depicting. This was made by a child right after the attacks of 9/11 in New York City. And I show you this here because I think it's important to recognize that even in young people, there is this need to find ways to simply process what's happening around us, even if we can't solve it. And sometimes that means making marks on a piece of paper. Sometimes it means naming things for what they are. I do this in my own work. These are just a few pieces of my work as a printmaker. And the only reason I'm sharing these here, because this is not about me, is that I have found a point in my life just a couple years ago where there seemed to be so much chaos in my very personal life and the world around me. And so for 100 days straight, I woke up every day and made a work of art. Sometimes it was an image, sometimes it was words, sometimes it was both. And my only goal was to be creative and to use that process as a way to have a daily discipline for processing the world around me and not just avoiding both the hard things and the beautiful things. You know, these two are just two examples, right? The one on the left of Aretha Franklin, I did that on the day that I found out she had passed away. I'm a fan of Aretha Franklin's music. And so that's what I needed to express that day. The one on the right of the typewriter with the word truth was actually done on a day after a world journalist, an international journalist, Khashoggi, was murdered. And I found myself really struggling with what it meant to speak truth when it also meant that your life could be at risk. And it doesn't always have to be heavy though, right? Sometimes it's about just being grateful for the simple things around us, right? For me, it's my lime tree right outside my kitchen door, or it's the patch of zinnias that is blooming actually right now in my front lawn. And recognizing that gratitude and abundance can seem small, but be incredibly important. Now, can I find gratitude in the world just by looking at those flowers? Of course I can. But by drawing them and writing the word abundance, it forced me to linger in that space of gratitude. It forced me to really look at those flowers, to think about why they matter and not simply walk by them. So this idea of marrying words and art have been with us for a long time, and contemporary artists love it. They love it to the point where often words become art. So I want you to think about this because we're going to be playing with this in a few minutes. So on the left, we see this incredible mural with Billie Holiday's image with the words blazoned big, life is beautiful. And then of course, on the right, an image that many of you may recognize, Robert Indiana's Love, the idea of love, just the word love made into a tangible work of art, right? So I'm not talking about art that has to be some spectacular image. Sometimes it's just lingering on a word or ideas that matter to us. I believe strongly when we are doing this kind of work, it can be messy. It can be imperfect. It isn't about always other people seeing it. Now that mural and that big sculpture are all about the public, right? That's about people seeing it. But what we're going to do today is for you. It's for you. You may choose to never show it to another person, but the simple act of creating it can be empowering and important as you carry all the things that you carry each and every day. So I'm not trying to make anybody on this call into a Van Gogh, right? Here we see Vincent van Gogh's beautiful painting of a sower, right? This is a masterpiece of art, right? It's a truly extraordinary painting. What I'm talking about, what we're going to do together is more like this. This is also Van Gogh. This is a letter that he wrote to his brother Theo. If you know anything about the artist Van Gogh, you know that these letters to his brother were a really important part of his life and his artistic process. His letters to Van Gogh, to his brother, were mostly like a journal page. It is where he was pouring out his fears, his anxieties, and his dreams. And in this particular letter, he did a sketch of the painting that I just showed you. He wanted to share it with his brother. He wanted to share the experience of being in the wheat field and seeing this man sowing seeds, right? Now, most people would look at this and not call it a finished work of art because it's not intended to be. But what it is an absolutely raw expression of the ideas, words, and concepts that mattered to Van Gogh on this day. And it was never intended to be seen by us. It was just a letter to his brother. But because he ended up famous long after his death, these letters have become public. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something that is more in line with a journal. Now, I know if you were on the sessions earlier today, somebody mentioned a gratitude journal. I believe that journals combining words and images have special power. The reason being, when we attach images to the words that you write down, it honors those words. It frames those words, right? It gives extra weight to those words. And in making images, sometimes we tap into a part of us that words themselves aren't able to reach. These are 3 journal pages by very famous artists. The one on the far left is Picasso. The one in the middle is Frida Kahlo. And the one on the right is the English painter, William Blake, right? So even really well-known famous artists found it important to keep journals and sketchbooks. So just 2 more slides and then we're going to jump into it. This is a picture of my space, Yellow House. It's a little place over here on North Riverside. And during the pandemic, we've been closed. And I have been really struggling with how to help people process what's been going on in the world around us during a time of pandemic, racial reckoning, financial uncertainty. And so since we were closed, it made it more challenging. But what we did is we created a tree of shadow and shine. And this is the theme that we're going to build on together. The idea that if we think about the past year, and we even think about you sitting here today, we all have shadow and shine in our life. Shadow are those things that we grieve, the things that we mourn, the things that weigh us down, the things that have us concerned. Shine is the joy. It's the gratitude. It's the hope. It's the ability to look forward. So what we did is we took our oak tree out in our front yard and invited anybody at any time to come and pick a ribbon, yellow for the shine, purple for the shadow, and write on those ribbons words and thoughts that would allow people to release some of what they were carrying at this time. It's a really simple thing. It's just markers and fabric, right? What we were doing here was creating a space where we could collectively grieve and hope, right? But I believe doing this on a personal level, in a journal, on a piece of paper, on a daily basis, sometimes using nothing but a pencil, is really all we sometimes need to create the space we need to be our fullest and best selves. So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can start doing. So if you have one of those pieces of paper, the back of an envelope, a journal, whatever, get that in front of you. If you have a pen or a marker, get that in front of you too. Because I happen to believe that keeping a journal is really almost essential for us. And again, it's not something anybody else needs to see. This is about you being able to process your inner world and the world around you. So I keep a journal every day. So this is just an example. Most of my journal pages just sort of look like this, right? They're just writing. They're just chicken scratch. They don't mean much. But occasionally I create pages where I give myself a prompt, a question to answer. And I add color to that page, not necessarily big fancy images, but just color to help ground me and to give me, again, permission to spend more time with the words that I'm writing. And that is a little bit of what we're going to do today. And even if you're not drawing along with us, you'll be able to do it in the chat box. So what I'd like us to do is we're going to create a journal page from a prompt. Now, if you keep a journal, maybe some of you do, you may use it to just document what happens in a day, like a diary. And that's good. That's actually a really good thing. But occasionally I give myself the challenge of putting one word on a piece of paper and then writing down everything I can think of when I think of that word. What it does is it forces me out of just recollecting the day, and it forces me to focus on kind of feelings and energy. So the word gratitude, I keep in my journal a page that just says gratitude at the top. And each day I go and I add one word or one phrase to it, right? So that every day I force myself to sort of think about something, even in the worst of days, something that I'm grateful for. Y'all, I also have a page that says at the top of it, cringe worthy. And what I use that page for is when I feel like I've really done something cringeworthy, something that was just not my best self, something that I said to somebody that I wish I hadn't said, something that I did that seems sort of absurd. I write it down on that cringeworthy page. Sometimes it even pulls up memories of things I've done in the past that I think, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? You know, as this sort of feeling, loving human being, how did I ever do that to someone? And what it does is it allows me to name it and to put it aside, right? Because it's about honoring it. It's about honoring the good in what's happening with us, as well as the things that are cringeworthy or frustrating. So here's what I want you to do on your, I could dedicate a whole notebook to cringe moments. Candace said, oh, I've got many a page filled with them. And it is remarkable, but it's healthy, right? We're safe. We're safe doing it in a journal or on a piece of paper. And if you don't want anybody to see it, you can like throw it away, burn it, you know, tear it up at the end, which can be its own healing process, right? So now I want you to take your pieces of paper. And if you're not doing this on a piece of paper at home, you can also do it in the chat box. On your piece of paper, you can either do 2 different pieces of paper or on one. I want you to write big the word shadow and the word shine. Now on mine, I did them on 2 different sheets of paper in one journal, but you can do them on the same sheet of paper. I just want you to write shadow and shine. What we're going to do with that is we are going to linger a bit on this idea of shadow and shine. And I'm not asking you to write a novel or to write prose. I'm just asking you to write words and short phrases. And what I want you to do on the pages where you've written the word shadow and shine, I now want you to make a list of words. And some of you can do this in the chat box. Make a list of words. We'll focus on shadow first. A list of words that focuses on this idea of shadow. And what I mean by shadow is sitting here right now today. What do you grieve? What have you lost, especially in this past year? What do you mourn? Or what feels kind of dark and heavy? What's got you anchored, right? What do you worry about? What is that shadow? So if you're doing this at home, all I want you to do is write words around that large word that says shadow. Just write words, right? Or short phrases. If you're going to work in the chat box, just start typing things into the chat box for shadow. What is your shadow right now? Right? What's sort of that thing sitting in the back of your mind? And y'all, sometimes these are big, grand things, right? Like the uncertainty of the world around us. Or it could simply be worrying about what you're going to make for dinner, right? What are the things that are sort of sitting on you and putting weight on you right now? What are the things that make you kind of clench your teeth or have put stress in your back or in your shoulders? I tend to wear it in my shoulders, right? Then I want you to focus on shine. What are you grateful for sitting here right now? How have you grown, even in tough times? What are the things that bring you joy? What gives you hope? And these can be really disconnected ideas, right? So write down the things that are shadow for you and the things that are shine. And whether you are writing along with at home or not, start adding some things into the chat box. Let's see what people are coming up with. What is shadow? Right? So what is our collective shadow sitting here right now as individuals? Oh, I can put the screen back up. These are powerful. These are really powerful, y'all. I think all of us can associate with almost everything that is appearing in the chat right now. So give me some shine, right? So even though these other things are incredibly real, right? Financial concerns, losing work, or being in work that you wish you weren't in, right? Having challenges with family, feeling guilt. What's your shine? Good health. That's such an important one right now, right? I think so many of us have a greater appreciation for that. Powerful, powerful, powerful. This is so good. This is so good. Cats, me too. Me too. These are powerful. So if you've written those in a journal page, they can simply be a list, right? A big word and a list of words. And just the act of putting those words down matters, right? You may have done, sometimes I try to do things within my journal that gives some structure to what I'm doing. So here you can see where I wrote shadow, big, and then just scribbled down lots of words that were coming to mind. Shine is lighter and brighter, you know, and I put my words into these rays of light. I want you to think about this when it comes to image making. One thing I can do with these journal pages is add color to it, which of course is my preference. And sometimes I might just use a highlighter marker and color that shine up with yellow and pink and orange, right? Or I'll use a cheap watercolor set and cover the whole thing with paint, which is super fun. But you can also just use your pencil or your marker or your pen to doodle on the edges, right? So I want you to think about these ideas of shadow and shine. What kind of marks might you make to express this idea of frustration and shadow and those things that you find difficult? You know, that might be strong zigzag lines all the way around your piece of paper, right? It might be a heavy black line across it. It might be covering the whole thing with gray paint. Not to get rid of what's on that page, right? But to give it the weight that it deserves. And on your shine page, what kind of marks might you make even if you don't have color, right? It might be swirls, right? It might be marks that are like confetti, right? It might be marks that feel like ribbons. Maybe it is sunshine. Maybe it is light rays. So on your piece of paper, sunburst, somebody said, absolutely. So many of you for shine, you talked about cats and puppies. It could be that all around your page with your shine words are, you know, little puppy faces, little cat faces. Maybe it's puppy paws. So this is not about thinking about creating a finished work of art. It is about the art part of this is about giving ourselves permission to linger, permission to pause and really spend time with these thoughts and ideas, to recognize them as important. Somebody just put in the chat, Mike did, shadow, pushing my pen so hard it breaks through the page and gouges the surface of my desk. That right there is poetry. That right there is powerful. And what I appreciate about what Mike just wrote in the chat is not only is it something like we can feel that, right? This idea of pushing your pen so hard that it breaks through the page. Like we can feel that in our bodies. We can feel it when we hear those words. He also paints a picture for us, right? Pushing my pen so hard it breaks through the page and gouges the surface of my desk. We can imagine the desk. We can imagine the ultimate kind of frailty of a piece of paper, right? We can imagine sitting at that piece of paper with our own pen, like so determined to make a mark, so determined to say what we want to say that it goes straight through the paper into the desk. It's powerful stuff. It's really powerful. Yeah, and some of it is too hard to often say out loud. I don't know about you all, but I often feel this way. Sometimes I can't say it to someone else. So writing it helps me spend time with that feeling, with that thought. And I give myself grace to do that. And it still takes courage to write it down on a piece of paper, even if nobody else is ever going to see it, right? Because you're making it real, you're making it tangible. But the fact is, it's already real and tangible, right? And sometimes the writing of it helps us reckon with it. It helps us see it and call it what it is. Sometimes simply naming things can be really useful, right? So I hope that some of you have actually written some of this down onto pieces of paper, right? My shadow and shine pages don't have color on them yet because I didn't want to take away my energy from you to be coloring on these, but I will. I'll be adding lots of color to these pages, right? But the other thing that I want to do is I want to take the many thoughts that you put in your chat about shadow and shine, and I want to reflect them back to you to show you that even a simple collection of words, just words, can be really beautiful and compelling. Truly, truly can, because this is part of your authentic expression. So here we go. I'm going to, in the moment, sort of create this word poem back to you about the things that exist in the chat box. And we're going to call the poem Reckoning with Shadow and Shine. And this is us, all of us. Our shadow looks like feeling guilt, COVID, loss, death, and grief. Our shadow looks like a non-productive sun and isolation. Our shadow looks a lot like imposter syndrome and feels like losing family, finances, loss of work. Shadow can be family obligations that are headed my way. Shadow can be being stuck in a job where I have been for too long. Shadow is uncertainty, the uncertain future for my son. Shadow is pushing my pen so hard it breaks through the page and gouges the surface of my desk. Our shadow is what no light has shone on, what I am ashamed to speak about, what I am afraid to see or be with. Sometimes I spend a lot of time trying not to think of the shadow. And yet, there is shine, there is light, there is hope. And for us, shine is our good health and knowing that I can survive. Shine takes the shape of my grandson. Shine is knowing that I am strong and strong in the love of my family. I am thankful that I can work from home, for my mom, for my brother, for my guardian angel, for my dog, for my cats, for my own innate skills. I am grateful for music, creative pursuits, my pups, and knowing that I have the ability to survive each day. Shine can look like a new job and seeing my own growth. Shine is about owning me and recognizing my possibilities. Shine can be a puppy losing her vision, yet learning to navigate the home and still wagging her tail. Shine takes on the light of the sun. Shine is being vulnerable, courageous enough to look into the shadow, those dark places. We are shadow and shine. So there is nothing spectacular about that except your words. That's all that is. That is simply a reflection back of everything that you all wrote. And I share that with you, and it is powerful. You're right, Brittany. It's beautiful and it's powerful. And listening to the connection of all of these words helps us feel less alone. I felt seen in this, right? I felt affirmed in it because I could see myself in those words. I could find myself in those words. So yes, this activity of journaling, of combining words and art making in beautiful and powerful ways can remain with you, right? It can simply be something that is very personal. But I also want you to recognize that it can be connected with others doing a similar thing. It can be an opportunity to share. One way that I do this is sometimes I will create a journal page and I will take a digital picture of it and I'll text it to friends and family, especially if it's one about gratitude, or if it's one about sort of something really hard happening that they may be aware of in my life. Sometimes it's easier for me to share that so that they know where I'm at than to actually talk about it, right? So there is the potential to share what you put down on a piece of paper, but it doesn't have to be. Because the importance is that you are doing this for yourself, and you need to allow yourself permission to do that. The creating of our journal pages that we just did today, right? And I hope you were able to add some marks to it and some color to it. When I did mine right before our session today, because I wanted it to be authentic and real in the moment, it took me 10 minutes. But you know what? During that 10 minutes, I wasn't thinking about the day-to-day things I tend to think about. I was focused on what I was putting on paper. I was focused on me for a moment. And we can't feel guilty about that, because the people who love us, the people who need us, the people who require us to stay healthy and whole, need us to stay in touch with ourselves, right? 10 minutes feels like a long time in some ways, but y'all, it's nothing. It's nothing. So I would hope that all of you would gather up a sweet little watercolor set, a beautiful bundle of colored pencils, a simple journal that doesn't even have to hardly cost anything, or just a stack of pieces of paper. And each day, give yourself permission to make a mark, to honor how you feel by putting it into words, no matter what that feeling is, frustrated, dark, light, or joyful. It is worth it. It is valuable. How you are feeling in that moment is valuable. And one of the best ways to value it, to hold space for it, right, is to give that few minutes to mark it down on paper. You can collect them up and look at them later. You can throw them right in the trash. For me, it's not about the product at the end of that 10 minutes. It is about your process. It is about your process of connecting to who you are in that moment. So I'm going to stop because we just have a couple of more minutes, and I would love to hear any questions that you have. I would love to hear your thoughts about how you might adapt what we sort of just did together into your life. I saw somebody, Melanie, just put in the chat box, I received a journal for Christmas and haven't opened it. I'm going to open it tonight. That is what's bringing me joy. Right there, right? Recognizing sometimes that we have the things right around us. We just have to sometimes put them to our use, right? So what questions do you have? Any other ideas that you want to offer up as to how you might use the writing of words, the shaping of the images, the combining of the two into something that might be useful for you, which is issue number one for me sitting here, or for someone else in your life? And how many of you already journal regularly? And why do you do it? Carpenters too, who make things, absolutely, right? What I showed y'all is sort of the most accessible, basic way to tap into your creativity, right? Because it doesn't take much. But cooks, gardeners, painters, musicians, dancers, poets, right? Anybody who makes things, that matters. Whether you call yourself an artist or not, we are creative beings. And when we are not tapping into that, It means we are not tapping into something that actually makes us whole. Oh, Delisa in my yard playing in the dirt. Me too. It's one of my favorite releases is to play in the dirt, right? And so think about how you could even expand on that if you also kept a daily journal, right, about how your garden grows. Force yourself to go outside and notice something new, right? And to make it a small entry in your journal. Y'all, you see the size of this journal? This is so tiny. It's thick, but it's tiny. I keep journals like this because it makes me less intimidated. I don't feel like I have to fill a whole page. I can write one sentence on a page and it matters, right? Without feeling like I have to fill it up. So like a garden journal where every day you're going to make an observation of something happening in your yard or your garden. A new flower has bloomed. You noticed bees for the first time. The weeds have come back and you don't want them to come back yet. Like one sentence each day in this, again, helps you just sit with that thing that you love a little bit longer. Time-lapse video of a bean growing in a glass jar on YouTube. Looks like it's dancing. I highly recommend watching it, right? That is about slow looking. And that's what some of this is about. It's about slowing us down, right? To either create something on our own or to observe somebody else's creation. That is, if nothing else, the important part of that is that it slows us down. Any questions from anyone that I can answer? And if not, I'm going to close us out by asking everyone to now type into the chat how you're feeling right now, right? How are you feeling after the end of this 45 minutes together? How are you going to move into the rest of this day? Inspired, lighter, hopeful, joyful. Lighter is good, y'all. Strong, creative, ready to get started. Hyped. Love that word. That's a good one. Oh, you're welcome. Y'all are very welcome. I really offered very little wisdom up today, except for my very, very strong belief that small acts of creativity make us more human, make us more whole. And I don't think we need much to be able to do that, right? And I just am so grateful to be in space with all of you today. It's really a gift. And I see some of you have been doing journaling. It's a big part of your self-care, expressing your current state, reflecting the past. Yeah, Tangela, thank you so much for sharing that, because that's another affirmation of the importance of this. You don't need to be a writer. You don't need to be an artist, but consider it a valuable part of your everyday activities. You brush your teeth to keep your teeth healthy. Keep a journal to keep your heart healthy, right? It's super important. With that, Candace, I am going to turn it back over to you. And again, I'm just so grateful for everybody for being a part of this work today.
Thank you, Hope. This has been amazing. I mean, I feel like I'm like speechless. You know, it's been such a powerful time. So Hope, thank you so much for leading us and guiding us through this kind of mental and emotional and spiritual journey that I don't think anybody anticipated walking through when they joined the session. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. There are no more important people in this world than the caregivers, whatever shape they take, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you are caring for community or caring for one individual, it is absolutely that love, that practice of radical love, you know, of giving to someone else so fully is important. And yet we often neglect caring for that caregiver. So Candace, I'm just really grateful that you all are doing the work that you're doing, and that you've assembled such a beautiful group of people to march through this together, because that does change the world for sure. And Mike, yes, Margaret just said, wow, Mike, you are a poet. I do have to end with this. Mike wrote, you lowered the bucket into our well-being and brought forth the things we so often neglect. That is the statement of this hour, and so beautifully stated. Thank you so much, Mike, for giving us those final words. Appreciate y'all.